Who'd you vote for? Who'd you vote for in the Heisman?
I've voted for Travis Hunter, the unicorn. I put Ashton Genty as my second player, and I put Sheduer Sanders as my third player. Ashton had a remarkable year, and Travis is unprecedented. And there is a difference between remarkable and unprecedented. We've never seen anything like what Travis was able to do. He is, in a lot of ways, as good as any defender in the country and as good as any wide receiver in the country. And that is something that is completely unprecedented, as I said. And the only comp is more Shohei Ohtani, because there's no one that's even done anything like this. When you look at his ranks as just a wide receiver at the Power 4 level, he's in the top 3-5 in basically every category. Then you look at what he is as a defender, and the respect that he is given as a defender is immense. You know, I've heard people probably like you that would criticize his defensive numbers, but that's just because guys like you don't really understand. So when it comes to defenders, in particular corners, a lack of numbers signifies an immense amount of respect. Think of it this way. BYU is going to walk in and they're going to create a game plan for this bowl game. And their offensive coordinator is going to walk into their offensive staff room, and he's going to say, hey, guys, we have to do everything we can to avoid Travis Hunter. He's the best player on the field. Okay, so our entire game plan has to be cognizant of where he is, who he's covering, and what coverage structure he is in. You know, is he in a jam technique? Is he in a zone? Does he have eyes in the backfield? Is he in man-to-man? Do we need to play the other side? Meanwhile, in an opposite room, the defensive coordinator is going to walk into his staff room, and he's going to say to his defensive staff, hey, guys, we need to do everything we can to take away Travis Hunter from their offensive game plan because he's the best player on the field. Just think about that for a moment, and that is why I voted for him at number one.
That's a good answer, and there's a lot of logic in there. I think you could have saved us 5 minutes and just said I voted for the two guys who went to my alma mater.
Well, Sheduer also was responsible for 82% of his team's offense, Salk. Did you know that that's the best in college football this year?
I don't know that
did you know that?
I don't know that I did know that.
I guarantee you didn't know that. I guarantee you also didn't know that it's the third highest percentage in the last 25 years.
I got to tell you, man, jokes aside, I'm actually totally with you. I think the Travis Hunter thing is incredible. I really do. I can't believe – I think the numbers are amazing, especially given what you said, that everybody's trying to take him away all the time. I actually totally agree with you on all of this. And I think Sheduer is going to be a heck of a pro. Every time I've watched him, I come away thinking that dude's really good. He can really throw, and his offensive line does not give him nearly enough time. And if they did, I think he'd be putting up the same kind of numbers as any other quarterback out there. I think he's dynamic and really fun to watch.
But the thing is that he did put up those numbers. He led the country in completion percentage. Fair. He was second in passing touchdowns. He was third in passing yards per game at over 327. You know, he's the fifth quarterback to be top three in those categories, and those three that I just listed in the last 15 years, with guys like Burrow and Bo Nix and Mac Jones, who had great years. And he did that all while being sacked the fourth most of any quarterback in the country, 38 times. See, so the number three spot for me, and I'd be interesting, you know, Brock, in your opinion on this, because I respect it, is I was going with what I felt like was the best quarterback year at number three. Mm-hmm. And it was basically a Cam Ward, Dylan Gabriel, and Sheduer Sanders discussion for me. And I thought Sheduer had the best quarterback year of any of them. Now, that's not to say that those guys didn't play incredibly well, but there's this kind of equation, variable. I think quarterbacks, generally speaking, are either surgeons or artists. And it's very rare when you get a guy that can be both and can be really effective in both areas. And Sheduer is one of those guys, and it's going to be the reason why he is taken as the top quarterback in the NFL draft. I think he might go number one, maybe number two. in the entire draft. And it's because when everything is clean, he is surgical. He's on time. Brock, you saw him more than I did live, but I saw him live. Like, man, it's on time and it's beautiful. And he understands how to throw and change pace on his throws. Throw with touch, throw the layered ball, throw it down the field, drive it into tight windows and intermediate zones. And when he's on time and on target, man, it is surgical. But then he's got this Fran Tarkington-style artistry of his ability to evade and elude the rush, keep his eyes down the field, and make plays down the field that you can't coach. And that combination of surgical play along with artistic play is something that is very unique.
You know, one of the advantages of leaving my old business was I don't have to call bowl games anymore. And the timing of it could not have been better. You know what bowl game our boy Klatt's calling, Salky? You know what bowl game he's calling, right? The
Holiday Bowl.
No, he doesn't. Brock,
the Holiday Bowl. The Holiday Bowl.
And you know who's in the Holiday Bowl, right?
Someone told him, your producer told him in his ear.
Brock told me the other day. I know.
There.
Brock told me the other day that Fox only has the Holiday Bowl.
That's it.
That's it.
That's correct.
I only try to make him look worse.
Yeah, I get no help.
I like you so much more right now. This is great.
So, Joel, how do you and Gus and crew prepare for a Holiday Bowl with a Wazoo team that now has 20 guys in the portal? And as of yesterday, just lost their kind of marquee quarterback. How do you even put this together?
Very carefully. I mean, to be honest, we're supposed to talk with Jake on Thursday, and I think it's going to be more of a counseling session than anything.
Yeah.
You know, this is unfortunate. I really wish that it was different. I think everybody wishes it was different, and this is not just this game, but it's happening in every single game around the country. You know, think about Bo Perbula, the backup for Penn State, who has to make that decision to enter the transfer portal the week that, and this is a guy that gets meaningful snaps for Penn State. Yeah. And they're in the playoff, and he's going into the portal. The system is totally broken. I don't fault these players. I think that if you're looking at these players and you have some sort of contempt for their decisions, I think that reflects poorly on you. I think that if you look at this in reality, it is not just a flawed but totally broken system, and it's one of many broken systems that the NCAA has kind of heaped upon us. It's one of the worst, if not the worst organization that I can think of. Obviously, some of the three letters out there, they've been worse, in particular over the last 4 and 5 years, but this one is just atrocious. And Brock, what I find so offensive is that we continue in our sport, we continue to allow the same people that built old college football to try to reconstruct modern college football. And they do so with an incredible amount of self-interest at heart. And so we're constantly trying to put new wine into old wineskins. It's the same people that gave us the Bowl Alliance, that gave us the BCS, that gave us the 4-team playoff, and they now gave us the 12-team playoff, and yet they tried to retain the bowl system.
Who should do it?
Because they tried to retain the bowl system, they pushed the playoff out far into January, which is just like such a frustration. It is absolutely crazy to open the transfer portal and have roster construction while a season is being played. We do not open free agency the week before the wild card round of the NFL playoffs. That is lunacy. And it's so obvious that it's lunacy. And yet in college football, we do it. And then we look at guys like, you know, Mateer or Bo Perbula, and we're like, man, I wish they were more committed. It's just so frustrating.
Who should do that? Great point. Who should do it? Who would you want to have making those decisions?
And the Big Ten should just break off. I just think that they should just stand on principle, and they could agree on a set of rules, and more specifically, they could agree on exactly how they're going to enforce those rules and move forward from there. I think that 2026 is a really, really important year in the history of college football, and that is because we need to construct this playoff in order to fix the calendar. not any other reason. And there's two main objectives to fixing the college football playoff. One is the calendar for roster construction, and then the other is that you can avoid the competition with the NFL, which is going to water down what should be the best part of our season. I believe strongly that we should just take the momentum that is created in November and play it right through December, and we should not take a break. There's no reason to take a break. Just play the playoffs, and then you can end the first week of January, which allows at least a 8 to 10 to maybe 12-day portal window before spring semester classes start, which is the whole reason why you've got to have, quote, an open transfer portal before the spring semester. Well, you can do that, and you can conclude the season prior to that as well. The fact that we have the playoff taking weeks on end, off in between each round, and we're going to conclude on a Monday night, January 20th, is the dumbest idea I've ever thought of. And I think the two guys that could really stand tall and do that are Greg Sankey and Tony Petitti, the commissioner of the Big Ten and the commissioner of the SEC.
There is no question that we are going to look back on these years at some point. I don't know if it's 26. I don't know if it's 36. I don't know when it's going to be, Joel, and look back at this era and go, how in the world were they that stupid? Like, how did you not wear a seatbelt in a car?
Are you
how did you smoke on it? How did you smoke on an airplane?
Culture and college football?
No, just college football.
I could get on board with that.
No, more just college football. You smoked on an airplane. The whole airplane was full of smoke. Yeah, we did that.
Yeah,
you were driving 90, and you didn't have seatbelts in the car. Yeah, we did that. Like, you had a portal open. Players had to decide. My sister-in-law said this best. We talked about this last hour, Klatt. You know what college football is right now? It's a garage sale. It's nothing but a big, fat garage sale where one person's trash is another treasure. This is coming with the players and everything else. The absolute turnover is chaotic. And now, to your point about the schedule, there's not one person that thinks this makes any sense whatsoever that's in the sport. And yet we just kind of nod along, and we got the playoff this weekend, and the games are going to be so compelling, and the theater is going to be so great for the first time in all of these venues at Notre Dame, everywhere else, that we're all just going to kind of, go along with something that is total lunacy.
Yeah, I tend to agree strongly with this. I want to take you back. Oh, gosh, now it's been 6 years. 6 years. Yeah, Brock, I was talking with – there was a small committee of people that the NCAA – charged with, like, hey, go and give us a report on name, image, and likeness. And this is before anything. Okay. Mm-hmm. This is, again, 6-7 years ago. And a couple of those athletic directors who were on that committee, I had a long discussion with these athletic directors, and they just, they asked my opinion. And at that point, I told them, I said, listen, you can take 2 steps that are really uncomfortable for you and you don't want to take right now, or you can wait and the courts are going to force you to take 10 that wreck your sport. That's what I told them then. And that's exactly what happened. And by the way, that small committee recommended to the NCAA, and I've seen the report, recommended to the NCAA to take those 2 steps to allow for name, image, and likeness. This is prior to transfer portal. This is prior to all of it. This is prior to some of this litigation that actually ended up getting settled and is now will be settled here in the ongoing months. They recommended to the NCAA to take steps in NIL, which would have, I think, settled down some of the conversation from the players and some of that litigation. And they didn't. The NCAA didn't adopt their recommendations. They just sat there, and then they waited for the litigation to come down, and boom, what do you know? They took forced into 10 steps that they couldn't take, and then they opened up the transfer portal, and now it's a total disaster.
So why
the NCAA is the biggest disaster in history of sport, period.
I love listening to you guys complain. It's fun. But Joel Klatt with us, I got to ask the follow-up then, which is, if everything you just said is true, and this is the worst organization, and I don't know that I could pick any real holes in what you just said, it's a mess. Why does arguably the greatest coach in the history of all sports want to join and coach at this level now at his age?
I mean, I don't know, Salk. Do you want $10 million?
I do, but I don't have as much money as Bill Belichick does.
60% female on campus at Chapel
Stop
Hill.
it. What,
61%.
You guys stop.
Oh, man.
I see. Oh, you guys don't have good answers, so now you got to make jokes.
61-39, and he's dating a co-ed. Like, she's 24.
So he thinks
She's
the
gonna go
best thing
grad
is to
school.
bring more young girls around? Like, I don't understand what the logic is there. That doesn't make sense.
Is it because he
Why
thinks
does
this thing
Belichick
is...
want in?
I'll answer it. No. Yep, go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, I think it's because he knows he can manipulate the whole thing, that this thing is so broken and stupid that I can pull enough levers that I'm going to be able to have inherent advantages at this level, like Nick Saban was able to find it at Alabama,
But Nick
that I
Saban
could
just
never
got
have
out.
at the NFL.
But Saban just got out and complained about it and said, I've got to get out because it's such a mess. Belichick, his buddy, says, I want to get in.
Videotaping a walkthrough and deflating some footballs. And college is like, we call that Tuesday down here, Bill. Let's go. Like, come on. How we doing?
Yep.
All right.
I will say this, though. Think about it, though. Just from take 2 steps back, and you think about all the inherent, like, it is unequivocally broken, and yet look how amazing it is. Which, at least for some of us, like, I continue to say, I think we're at the dawn of the golden age of this sport. And the reason is because I do think that there are going to be fixes that arrive. And we will get some structures that are better for the sport and roster management and all of these things. And yet, like, you look up and it's like, our sport has never been more popular. It has never been better. Mm-hmm. And so why is Bill Belichick here? Because you're getting in on Tesla at $10. You're getting in at Bitcoin at $125, where it's like nobody thinks that it's right yet, and yet the upside is tremendous. Mm-hmm. I firmly believe it's already the second most popular sport in our country. Now, it's a wide margin between the NFL and college football, but if they just do some small things to fix the calendar and fix some of these things, this thing is a rocket ship. College football isn't even scratching the surface of its popularity, and that's why a guy like Bill Belichick would want to get in on this. It's real.
Travis Hunter, a corner or a receiver at the next level, Joel?
Oh, good one. All right. I believe he's both, and this is not a cop-out. I believe that the proper way to have a plan for Travis Hunter is that you play him at corner primarily. He is a starting corner for your team. And then you have him as the 3rd/4th wide receiver on the roster. Everyone's going to carry 3 or 4 wide receivers, so he's the 3rd or 4th wide receiver. Now, Brock, as you know, just based on game plan, game situation, more specifically, that 3rd wide receiver is probably going to get, what do you think, between 25 and 40 at most snaps? Mm-hmm. That's probably what they're getting. So you can limit his number of snaps on the offensive side as a full-time starter. Number 3 wide receiver is a full-time. He's a starting player on your offense, and he's a large contributor. And he doesn't have to sit there, and he doesn't have to play outside as a 6'4" player. He can play inside. He can then be in motion. You can get him the ball in creative ways, and he can play as a starting corner on the defensive side. Let's say he plays 60 to 65 snaps on the defensive side. Well, now he's going to play 90 snaps. I think he can do that. He's just played on average, 138? So it's going to, at least for me, I think he can affect the game on both sides at the next level.
Get your popcorn ready. Because the next few months, by the way, the next few months leading up into the NFL draft is going to be a little bit like what you're talking about with college football. And the fact that Prime believes he can manipulate things. I'm sure he told you the same thing he told us in our production meetings, that if teams are not looking at Travis to play both ways, we won't be looking to go there. And I'm like,
that's right.
I'm like, what? Like you don't.
By the way, Brock, I would love your thoughts on this, because you were around him a lot, and I've obviously been around him a lot. But does Travis win the Heisman anywhere else?
Without Deion, without the marketing, without the sales, without just the cred that he has, it'd be a lot harder to do. A lot harder.
Would other coaches have allowed him to play both ways?
I think there's no way that another coach would allow them to play both. It takes foresight and fortitude.
Yeah.
And think about it. Let me just paint the scenario really quick, Salk, because you're around coaches, and I'm sure they cringe a little bit, but you're around them. and so here they are, and now it's a Tuesday or a Wednesday. And the previous week, let's say the defense struggled a little bit, and the media is on them and the fan base is on the coaching staff. And then here you are, and your best defender is not dressed for practice because of load management or rest or whatever it is, right?
Yep.
And he's just sitting there taking mental reps, and you're the head coach. Do you know the amount of fortitude that you have to fight off the narrative that, like, hey, my defensive coordinator is like, I need him in practice. Now the offensive coordinator, I need him in practice. You got to fight your own staff. You got to fight the media. You got to fight the fan base. And there's one guy in America that does not care what any of those people think, and that's Deion Sanders. And he told us that. Remember last year in that amazing soundbite when he was like, what makes you think that I care about what you think about me?
Yeah. I think there's probably a few. I would think we just talked about one, Bill Belichick. I think if that's what he wanted to do, he would be perfectly willing to not care what anybody else thinks. I think Jim Harbaugh's like that.
Bill Belichick would sit there on a Tuesday. I don't think Jim Harbaugh would sit there on a Tuesday.
They wouldn't
and
like
think
it.
to themselves like, yeah, I'm fine with my guy not being in practice.
That's a different issue.
Here's the other part is that it's not just about fortitude, but like foresight. And Deion understands because he was that guy. So in his mind, he's like, I understand that kid doesn't need Tuesday's practice as long as he's mentally right. Whereas even a guy like Belichick or Harbaugh or any of these guys, Pete Carroll in his heyday, coaches have the blinders on, man, and they live for the day, and they live for, like, what did you do today that made you better for Saturday or Sunday? And that's their entire MO, right? They're just like blinders on. So to see a kid who's your best player who is not injured but not practicing, I just can't get over the fact of how unique Deion is to allow that to happen.